Chapter 17. Look, Tommy, as much as I appreciate these sessions, I don't think you complaining about the new Minecraft update that your own foster father coded is what you really want to talk about today, Puffy said. Tommy was sat on a beanbag next to her desk, with a bowl of salted popcorn in his lap. According to Puffy, a major part of conversational model therapy was providing a warm and secure environment, so she bought a red beanbag for him off Amazon. He brought the popcorn with him. He found it in the back of Wilbur's car, and his slight immortality would protect him from out-of-date snacks. Puffy, all I want to talk about is the 1.17 update. It's a good therapy subject. Like, why did they split the caves and cliffs into 2 parts? It should have been one big update, Tommy explained, throwing another piece of popcorn into his mouth. His therapist quirked an eyebrow at him. What did I tell you about lying? Tommy huffed. That it's not beneficial for either of us, and I'm just fucking myself over even more if I do. I didn't use that exact phrasing, but yeah, I like that answer, Puffy said, noting something onto her computer with a smile. But seriously, what's bothering you? Tommy wished he didn't tell Puffy he preferred it when she pushed him for answers. Although he liked it in the beginning, when she clarified that he had a choice to answer her questions, he knew that if he wasn't forced into a certain direction, this entire therapy idea wouldn't help him. He'd just end up going in circles. He ate a few more pieces of popcorn and propped himself forward. I'm having issues with my foster brother. The one who's also having therapy. Wilbur? Puffy supplied, and Tommy nodded. I could use some advice on it now that you're diverting me from Minecraft. To be honest, though, I can talk more about how the Warden is technically a mini-boss and not an actual boss because Tommy... Puffy interrupted, still amused by his enthusiasm about the video game, though she suspected it was just him trying to cover up his anxiety over the new topic. Before I give you advice, I need some context. What did Wilbur do? Tommy hummed to himself. What did Wilbur do? This Wilbur did nothing to Tommy, besides make this entire conflict even worse. He hated how Wilbur spoke to him, expecting Tommy to banter back with the same energy as he usually did. The hurt that flashed in the elder's eyes pained him every single time, and he didn't know what to do. It's not about what Wilbur did, it's more what he represents to me, Tommy decided on, as he fiddled with his hands. I can't help but make that comparison. Did it bother you before, or is this a sudden thing? A dream made the similarity apparent, Tommy confided, bitter. He peered at the office walls. The striped curtains looked too similar to the apartment complex Estella and her family lived in. His leg bounced on his foot. Nerves gnawed at him. He hadn't had a dream visit since that. He theorized that the god was purposefully giving him a break. Tommy, you with me? His eyes snapped forward. He pressed his hand down on his leg, stopping it from bouncing. Puffy smiled kindly at him. Yeah, I'm here. Just got lost for a moment. Would you say that what we're dealing with here are the consequences in you relaying your dreams to real life? Tommy frowned, confused. Is the problem rooted with you comparing your dreams to reality? Perhaps a difficulty distinguishing between the two? He shook his head. No, Puffy, believe me, it's real. The resemblances between Wilbur and him are there. It's real. He picked at the scabs on his palm, a weight compressed against his chest. And I can't stop comparing what I dreamed to what's happened or happening in my life because it's not fake. I believe you, she reassured, calming his rapid heartbeat. I believe you, Tommy. My theory is wrong. He nodded. His throat was dry. What about we approach this another way? She suggested, her voice lighter. What are the differences between Wilbur and the person he represents to you? I mean, they both are men with brown hair and brown eyes. Very kickable faces. He chuckled to himself, and Puffy's face brightened. He paused and bit on his cheek. Their smiles are different, though. Wilbur's is more open with his intentions. He smiles at you because he's expressing himself, not because he wishes to lure you into a certain emotion that he wants you to feel. Is the other man more calculating, then? Tommy's breath hitched. His brother, during the L'Manberg era, now that he looks back on it, was very calculating with how he acted and presented himself. There was never a moment Tommy doubted a word he said, or even desired to go against him. And if that moment did occur, his brother's steel words and heavy bearings would anchor him back to his place, by his big brother's side, as docile and susceptible as ever. Yeah, he exhaled. He was calculating, and more charismatic. Wilbur's awkward as fuck, and he does things for others without expecting people to do something in return for him. So, it's more in their personality where it differs? Puffy inquired. Tommy nodded in agreement. Is there any way we can transfer these differences? So when you look at Wilbur, you don't see the other man? Tommy didn't know. It was hard to even look at Wilbur anymore. What if, over the time before our next session, you write down some positive memories you have of Wilbur, something to think about as soon as he comes to your head, rather than the comparison and resemblances to the other man? Puffy said, typing as she spoke. Do you think that would help? Maybe in theory, Tommy answered. I don't have that much control over my thoughts. Puffy chuckled lightly. Your impulsiveness is evident enough of that. He grinned at her. Try it for me. List some Wilbur memories that are important to you for the next time I see you. You're giving me homework, he complained, half-heartedly. But fine, I'll do it. He walked into the reception after his session, which wasn't busy since it was Saturday at 7 o'clock in the evening. He sat down and debated leaving without Wilbur, but the man exiting the lift door disturbed his idea. You all right? Wilbur asked as he moved to put his arm around Tommy. He bit on his lip to stop himself from grimacing at the touch. Yep, I got homework from Puffy, he said, his shoulders tense and jaw clenched. Lucky. My therapist just shitted on me for an hour straight. Wilbur laughed humorlessly and looked downwards, probably waiting for him to quip back with something. But Tommy stayed silent. Let's walk to the park. It's just around the corner. He continued his silence, guilt eating him up inside. He knew Wilbur expected him to make fun of him, but he couldn't. He had been trying all week to act normally with him, and it worked when Phil or Techno was there. Yet, the second the two were alone, his facade crumbled. They sat on a bench underneath a tree. The gusts of wind entertained the rigid silence between them. Tommy took his phone out of his pocket and clicked on the most recent contact. Moth. Tommy. Hello, best friend. Please respond. Haha, seriously, respond. Clementine. Hello, best friend. What do you want? Tommy. Sorry, I am using you to get out of an awkward convo with my foster brother. I know it's your birthday, but please save me. Holy shit. Clementine. At least you're self-aware of how you're exploiting our friendship. Tommy. Shut the fuck up. Clementine. Rude. Let me send pics of my pets, and you have to judge them all. Type a lot, so it looks like a serious conversation. Tommy. Deal. Thank you, Clem. After a couple of minutes of Tommy rapidly typing, Wilbur sighed from beside him and snatched the phone out of his hands. What did I do, Tommy? Wilbur asked, his tone vulnerable, yearning for an answer, for anything. It's different between us, and I don't know what happened. Tommy grabbed his phone back and held it in his hand for comfort. I can't explain it to you yet, or if I can at all. Is it my fault? Wilbur's face ached with remorse, ashamed of a deed he wasn't aware he committed. A pit boiled deep in Tommy's stomach. Frustration pulsated beneath his skin. I don't know. You don't know? Wilbur repeated. I don't know! He spat out. Can we stop talking about this, please? Wilbur silently fumed, but dropped it. You can't avoid this, though. Wilbur said. We're talking about this later. Tommy gulped. He could sense the shouting match and eventual mental breakdown from miles away. Sorry, I'm busy later, he blurted out. Busy doing what? Wilbur asked, skeptical. He glanced down at his phone, and Clementine was still sending pictures of her pets. It's Clementine's birthday, and she's having a party at her house. Technically, that wasn't a lie. She had invited him on Friday, but he declined since Tommy and parties were not a safe mix. Especially since this was Clementine, the person known for having a severe deprivation of adult and parental supervision. Has Dad said you're allowed to go? Nope, but he owes me. Tommy could easily use the whole, you're making me fake being anxious when planes are brought up in my history classes because of you, to his advantage. Anyway, I have to go to Tubbo's. Bye. He stood up from the bench, but Wilbur's sudden grip on his arm stopped him from leaving. The grip wasn't even that harsh, but Tommy felt trapped. He tried to push him off, yet Wilbur wouldn't budge. Let go of me. He continued to shove Wilbur off him. I can't fucking believe you. Wilbur scoffed under his breath and let go. Tommy staggered on his feet and walked away. He looked back once to see Wilbur staring at him, his face furrowed with defeat. His pacing quickened. He retrieved Clementine's present and some clothes from his house before texting Phil about the party and going to Tubbo's house. He knew Ronbu was already there, and it wouldn't be that hard to convince them both to come to Clementine's party with him. Fuck off, I'm not coming, Tubbo said, as soon as Tommy brought it up when he entered his bedroom. I have maths homework on Monday, Ronbu added. Too fucking bad you're both coming, Tommy declared as he pulled out his clothes from the bag. Tommy, I don't think you understand. I'm not extroverted, and Ronbu is quirky. Ronbu ignored the insult. Will there be alcohol there? Dude, it's Clementine. Nope, I'm staying here. Ronbu shot back, holding his arms up in surrender. Guys, please just come with me. He pouted at them. I need you guys. This is manipulation, and it's working on Ronbu. Tubbo groaned and shoved Ronbu, who was staring down at Tommy as if he was a wounded puppy. For fuck's sake. It's the eyes, man. I can't help it. Ronbu exclaimed as Tommy continued to pout at them. Tubbo sighed loudly. Fine, we're coming, but you owe us. Thanks, lads. Tommy beamed at them both. It didn't take long for the boys to get ready, though if you asked Tommy, Ronbu took the longest. The taller one did look the most dripped out. He managed to make a Hawaiian t-shirt look fashionable and matched his face mask to his shirt underneath, whilst Tubbo was dressed like a Pixar character. It suited him. During the Uber drive to Clementine's house, she lived in the richer part of Snowchester, aka the place Phil should be living in. Tubbo glared at Tommy the entire time. Yet when they got there, it was more of a mansion than a house. Tommy was glad Phil chose to live a humbler lifestyle. Even from the outside, you could tell there were too many rooms built inside there, with how many windows you could see. The entire house looked like Tory propaganda from the 1960s under Prime Minister Macmillan. His catchphrase of, "never had it so good," very much applied to this. "Tommy, what the fuck have you gotten us into?" Tubbo demanded, gaping at the house. "Let's have some fun, boys." Tommy dragged Tubbo by his arm, and Ronbu reluctantly followed them. "You can't tell under my sunglasses, but I'm glaring at you too, Tommy," Ronbu said, as he pushed open the already ajar door. The inside of the house was grander than the outside. Banners and balloons with Clementine's name were stuck on the walls. There was a table full of food right next to the drinks table, which had substances on it that Tommy's stomach dropped at. Okay, maybe going to a party that was obviously going to have alcohol in it, when your Sisyphus family had a history of alcoholism and drug addiction, was not a good idea. But Tommy never did think over things properly. Music that sounded like one of Wilbur's popular Spotify playlists was playing. The reminder seemed to balance the fear growing inside him. That was the reason he was here. Partly for Clementine as well. But the main reason he impulsively decided to come was directed to wanting to forget all his problems for just one night. He didn't want to feel burdened by memories of Wilbur. He just wanted to have fun and be a normal teenager for once. And if that meant disregarding the pleadings in his head to not do what he was about to do, then so be it. He made his way towards the drinks table and poured himself something into a red cup and downed it without hesitation. It burned his throat, and honestly, he could have thrown up on the spot. Ronbu reached forward and took the now empty cup out of his hands. Tubbo gawked at him, shocked. "Dude, what the hell? You don't down whiskey?" Ronbu said, screwing the cap back onto the Jack Daniels bottle and moving it far away from Tommy. "And you didn't even mix it with Coke or something." "Well, I've learned my lesson." Tommy gasped, his throat sore and mind buffering. Every time he breathed out and smelled the tinge of alcohol, a wisp of his Sisyphus life flashed in front of him. Yeah, he may have fucked up here. "This night's gonna be eventful, isn't it?" Tubbo said, dread in his voice. "Oh, hey, Clementine is a we. We're playing." Well, that was a quick mood change. Speaking of Clementine, she noticed him downstairs and ran towards them. She had a crown on her head and glitter strands in her hair. "Tommy!" She threw her arms around him and he hugged her back. "You didn't tell me you were coming." "Surprise." He smiled, his tongue still burning. "I also brought these two." "Hello," Clementine said, waving at Tubbo and Ronbu. "You guys don't seem like the people to go to parties." "We play Minecraft," Tubbo answered, as if that explained it, which it did. I'm more of a Sims type person," Clementine said. "Just try to have fun. There's non-alcoholic stuff too. Raid my fridge if you want." "I mean, I play Sims as well," Ronbu inputted. "But do you play modded Sims?" she asked, and Ronbu shook his head. "Now that is the difference between us." She giggled and faced Tommy again. "I'm glad you're here." "I brought you a present." He took the gift bag from Ronbu and gave it to her. She opened it and cuddled the moth plushie to her chest. "You remind me of a moth, so here." "I don't know if I should be offended or not," she grinned teasingly. "A beautiful, beautiful moth." "Aw, thank you." Tubbo dragged Ronbu towards the Wii, and Tommy turned back to Clementine. "How did your parents allow you all this?" "They're currently in America trying to invest in NFTs," she explained, trying to keep the smile on her face as she spoke. It was probably a bad time to bring up her parents, especially at her birthday party. "That sounds like a sexual disease," Tommy shot back. "It's capitalism in a nutshell." "So I'm correct?" he said, and she laughed. "Does the reason you came here have anything to do with our text messages earlier?" His mouth thinned into a hard line. pretty much. Well, you have fun with your friends tonight, she ordered, beaming at him. But the carefree energy she exhibited dropped when she looked behind Tommy. Oh, my girlfriend's gonna injure herself. Bye. Tommy watched as Clementine pulled Vitalia from where she was swinging on the top banister of the staircase. Ignoring all that, he walked towards Tubbo and Ronbu, who were creating their me characters on the TV screen. He sat down on the sofa closest to the snacks on the coffee table as he tried to feel his tongue again. Ronbu was right. Downing whiskey was not a good decision. He grabbed a bowl of gummy bears from the table and ate them. They tasted weird, but he'd never had gummy bears before. When Tubbo got bored of the Me Party minigames, he managed to hook up the VR headset he found behind the TV to the screen and started playing Beat Saber. As Tubbo gave himself a headache with the game, Tommy finished the bowl of gummy bears, leaning into Ronbu's side. The other boy was currently trying to negotiate with the girl next to him, who was drinking vodka straight from the bottle as if it was water. He managed to take it off her, though she kept clarifying that she was fine because she was Slavic. Either way, Tommy now had the vodka bottle, which made Ronbu sigh himself into oblivion. I am babysitting. I hate it here, Ronbu complained, narrowing his eyes at Tommy, who was holding the bottle as if it was a small child. Aren't you having fun? Tommy asked. His eyes kept making the room appear a different shade every time he blinked. He didn't know if that was a side effect of the whiskey, or because of the flashing lights in the living room. Probably both. Well, Tommy, I am an introvert who isn't interested in drinking alcohol at a party. Fun! Ronbu facepalmed. Maybe for you. Okay, how can I make this fun for you? I kinda want to force Tubbo to play a horror game. Fuck off, Boo! We're not doing that again! Tubbo shouted as he played his VR game. He was close to knocking into the wall, but neither Tommy nor Ronbu moved to stop him. Ow! Tommy stifled his laughter as he caved into Ronbu's side, accidentally spilling the opened vodka onto him. Oh, fuck. Ronbu jumped up, rushing to pick up the bottle. Tommy, just know that if I did have swearing in my vocabulary, I would use every single one of them right now to describe you. Aw, you'd swear for me? No, I'd swear at you. Ronbu took napkins from the coffee table to dry himself. I smell like nail varnish now. A good scent, Tommy said as he sniffed him. No, you smell more like those gummy bears. Ronbu whacked him. Stop sniffing me. Sorry, Ronbu. Tommy collapsed onto his side. You can make it up to me by helping me add Lemon Demon songs onto this speaker. Only if we add a Rickroll in the queue as well, Tommy said, his blue eyes glinting. Can we play card games as well? Sure. As hours passed by, Tommy felt worse. He didn't feel in control of his body, or his thoughts for that matter, which was kind of a good thing since no negativity or reminders came to his mind. No comparisons to his past mother, no guilt nor fear towards Wilbur, nothing. But he was angry. Tubbo kept making him pick up cards in Uno, though it passed when Tubbo apologized and patted him on the head. Now the three were in the garden. Both Ronbu and Tubbo were sharing a lounge bed around the pool. Ronbu was on his 7th Capri Sun, and Tubbo sipped on some random drink Tommy gave him from the kitchen. Tommy lay on a mat on the ground. He had attempted to stand up, and fell, so he just stayed there. Apparently, the entire bowl of gummy bears he ate was soaked in vodka. He was an idiot. He gazed up at the sky, trying to distinguish star constellations, and couldn't spot the one he usually saw when he was at the bench by the seawall, the crown-shaped one. What do you guys want to do after school? Ronbu suddenly asked. He was in a philosophical mood. Infiltrate the US government and find out what Area 54 really is? Tubbo said. Or work in NASA. Either's fine. Tommy nodded. That was a perfectly reasonable occupation goal, whilst Ronbu stuttered out a response. Why would you want to infiltrate the American government? Why wouldn't you? Fair enough. What about you then? Stand-up comedian, Ronbu answered. Come on then, big man, do some stand-up for us, Tommy said, resting on his elbow. Ronbu simply just stood up, then sat back down. If I had tomatoes right now, I'd throw them at you, Tubbo groaned over Tommy's laughter. Tommy at least found it funny. He is fucking wasted. Everything is funny to him right now, Tubbo said, gesturing to the boy who was currently cackling on the floor. Tommy, what about you? Tommy paused and struggled to get up, but managed to move onto the same lounge bed as the two of them, squeezing in the middle of them. I want to live off-grid. Make myself a little mud house in a hill, have a little farm, some pets. Okay, Bear Grylls. I won't drink my own urine, fuck off, Tommy murmured as he nestled into Tubbo's side. Piss off. Tubbo pushed him more into Ronbu. You are clingy. And you are a bitch, Tommy mumbled, giggling to himself. I have another idea for the future, though, Tubbo began. Ronbu, want to get platonically married for tax benefits? Can we get a cat? Tubbo nodded. Then sure. I'll be in charge of the music at your wedding, Tommy said. Ronbu combed his hand through Tommy's hair. No thanks. You'd probably play the Avengers theme song as we walk down the aisle. But it would be funny, though. It would be funny, Tubbo agreed, and the three laughed. Warmth rippled through Tommy. He felt at home. He leaned further into Ronbu's hand and settled his chin on top of Tubbo's shoulder. His eyes fluttered shut, content. I don't want to die, you guys. What? I think this is the happiest I've ever been, and I don't want to go. He continued, letting the sweet fuzziness in his head and heart overwhelm him. You aren't going anywhere. What are you talking about? Ronbu's arm around him tensed. No, it's fine. A small hand rested on his cheek. I've accepted it, but still. Tom, you're not gonna die, Tubbo muttered. He opened his eyes, and Tubbo stared back, his eyebrows creased with concern. Tommy smiled sadly at his friend. I am. Tubbo wrapped his arms around him, encasing him in a tight hug. Shut the fuck up, you're drunk and talking shit. But shut up, Tubbo hissed. Tommy sighed and let his body sag against them. Ronbu resumed stroking his hair, and Tubbo slotted his head in Tommy's neck. Don't leave me. We won't. Ronbu whispered, softly. We won't. Tommy was silent in the Uber drive home, half draped across Ronbu's lap. Phil had been texting him on their way back, but every time he looked down at his phone screen, the letters mushed together and his eyes stung. Ronbu had to be the one to text back. The moment Phil opened the door, his mouth fell open. When he gave Tommy permission, well, more like he was forced into permitting him to go to this party, he didn't expect this. They all looked like a mess. Ronbu stunk of alcohol because of how Tommy spilt it on him. Tubbo had a pink cowboy hat on his head. None of them knew where he got it from. And Tommy could barely stand up on his own. What the fuck? Phil spluttered out, ushering the boys inside. For legal reasons, I did not drink, though my clothes did, Ronbu said, as he helped Tommy stand up straight. Wilbur frowned at the trio from where he sat on the dinner table with a bowl of pasta. What happened to you three? Tommy used me as a drink coaster, Ranbu explained. He is also the cause of all our current problems, Tubbo added on. Well, I see that, Wilbur said. Shut up, shed boy, Tommy grumbled quietly, his arms gripping onto Ranbu. Tommy, I thought I told you that one of the rules in this house is no illegal shit, Phil said. You're gonna go dad mode on me, aren't you? Yep, when you're sober in the morning, Phil confirmed. Will, could you drive Tubbo and Ranbu home for me? Both boys said their goodbyes to Tommy, though he barely noticed them, as his head was practically vibrating out of his skull. Phil placed a water bottle in Tommy's hands and directed him towards the longest sofa in the living room. He laid down next to the boy, worry in his eyes, as Tommy struggled to move his body as he intended it to. This isn't normal behavior from you, Tommy, Phil said quietly, cradling him to his side. I think normal has gone out the window, he replied, his words slightly slurred as his head drooped. What happened? Phil asked. You've been acting weird with Wilbur and now you pull this? Tommy hummed, burying himself deeper into the sofa. I'm worried about you. You shouldn't be, he muttered. My 15-year-old son is drunk, I should be worried. Tommy blinked up at him, smiling at the affection in his tone. I'm your son? Of course you are, you little shit. Phil kissed the top of his head. Now what's wrong? Tommy rubbed at his eyes. Words flowed into his head at a rapid pace. I can't go back to normal. He killed Estella and so many other people. What? He couldn't stop the words from leaving his mouth. Wilbur, he killed her. She's gone, and it's all his fault. He murdered her and everyone in that building. And he's the reason I died in the first place. Tommy, you're not making any sense, Phil whispered, holding onto his shoulder. I didn't want to go to war, Phil. I really didn't. I was a fucking kid and he was supposed to protect me and I... He cut himself off, his breath hitching. Did you dream this? Is this the nightmare you had that Techno was telling me about? No, it's real and... He shoved his head into Phil's chest and let the tears finally fall. I can't do this anymore. Shh, it's okay. You're drunk, it's all right. Phil rubbed Tommy's back as he sobbed, his chest spiking in pain and head blaring. Drink some water and lie down. You'll sleep on here tonight with me, okay? Tommy's body slacked with no energy, the fight in him dissolving. He couldn't do this any longer. He wanted this home to stay, to keep these people by his side for once. A pillow was pushed under his head, his tears dampening the fabric. He clutched onto Phil's hand, not letting the man go. I don't want to be alone anymore, he whimpered. Phil tightened his hold on him. You're not alone. The man kept repeating these words until the tears dried on Tommy's face and his breathing calmed. The front door opened, and Tommy turned his face from the pillow, his vision blurred. Will, leave him. He probably doesn't understand what's going on, Phil said lowly, and someone knelt in front of him. What did I do? The voice asked, with timid urgency and desperation. Wilbur. You didn't do anything, Tommy slurred, squeezing Phil's hand. He raised his shaking hand to prod at Wilbur's chest, at his heart. But he did. I don't know what you mean, Toms. I can't look at you in the same way, he murmured, his lips numb. He blinked until his vision cleared. Wilbur's face was close to his. He tried to remember how Wilbur sang him to sleep with that stupid song about the internet ruining him. Wilbur's shock when Tommy gave him the album cover art for Christmas. The hug they had that he wished never ended. Wilbur stealing the crusts from his Domino's pizza since he never ate them. Wilbur flipping him off at any opportunity whenever they crossed paths at school. The heat of Wilbur tucked into his side as they sat on the graveyard bench that one cold night. He cupped Wilbur's face and hoped to see something other than a cold-hearted murderer. But he couldn't. I'm so fucking sorry. The tears returned, and he broke. How can I change this? Wilbur put his hand over Tommy's, pressing it more into his face. Please, I want my little brother back. He fell forward into Wilbur's arms, sobs wrenching from his heart. He wished to kindle the warmth he once felt, but self-loathing and coldness pricked at his skin. Despising every thought that crossed his mind, he cried into his brother's shoulder. Please don't remember. He wept, clinging to the soul he was supposed to detest. Don't remember being him. Wilbur kissed his forehead. I love you, okay? More tears streamed down his face. I love you too, he cried, hating the honest words.